Hey everybody, welcome to etrailer.com. I'm Bobby, and today we're taking a look at the Hitch Rack's destination for bike rack carrier here on our 2016 Mazda CX-9. Now this can be an awesome way of getting a lot of bikes to your destination, guys. Now right out of the gate, it can look a little messy. You have a lot of straps, get a lot of pivot points. However, when you really start seeing how well of a job it starts holding your bike on, I think you are becoming a bigger fan, just like I have been. Taking a look too, one thing I really like, you are getting reflectors right on the very end of this guy. I don't think it's standard enough across the industry, and I love to point them out because it's just nice to go ahead and make sure that our friends and family can get home safe, whether it be from a long drive at night or on one of those long road trips. Can be nice to go ahead and make sure people know exactly where we are, especially being in an all black rack like here today. Of course, you are getting a nice little platform style here with two wheel holders on either end. That's going to go ahead and with those straps included, allow ourselves to get a nice firm contact on both of our wheels while still allowing ourselves to have another firm frame contact right in the middle. However, that frame contact is going to lead us to some interesting discoveries. First one being, not going to be able to carry your carbon frame bikes on the sky. Because you have that frame contact, it will end up warping and deteriorating that carbon frame. So unfortunately, not going to be able to carry those guys. One thing with it too though, sometimes you run into issues with women's bikes, step-through bikes, and even kiddos bikes. They tend to have sometimes kind of irregular horizontal frames. However, with this frame mount here in the middle, you can see we're going to get a whole lot of versatility out of this guy. So not only we're going to get up and down, however which we need for our bikes, we're also getting 360 degrees of revolution here on that middle mount system. So whether you have a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal post, should have no trouble at all getting on here with this system. And one thing with those cradles too, you know, when you are trying to put all four bikes on here, it can be kind of a pain to try to manage all that gear housing. Where are my handles at? Well, these kind of like strips right here, guys, are interchangeable. They just simply loosen up by going lefty-loosey, and we can go ahead and take that bolt and put it in one of these two positions on each side of our carrier, which is going to be great for ourselves, just to go ahead and give us that little bit of versatility that is going to go a long way. With a 35-pound capacity per bike as well, we should have no trouble getting most of our standard and even in some of those mountain bike ranges, and that way we can go ahead and get everybody to the trailhead with us. Well, it's not going to take us too long to actually get this bike off. Since it is a platform style, unfortunately, we don't have any kind of tilt-away capabilities. However, we still have a way of accessing our hatch once we get our bike off. So let's go ahead, start taking a look at that. We're gonna come right up to our strips here and just pressing in that gray lever. It's gonna allow ourselves to take off our strips. Of course, you're going to have a little hole in here too. I like those. That way I'm not having to pinch the strip when our hands are cold and wet after a ride. We can just go ahead, put a finger down, make sure it is nice and latched. You also are seeing a little rubber pad on there too, just to prevent any kind of damage to our rim as it hangs on there, which is always great. I like how the strips are long enough too to actually stick underneath the cradles themselves too. That way it's not in our way when we go to take it off, and especially when we go ahead and mount it back up. But that does bring us to our last point of contact. I like to go ahead, just wrap my hand around here. Therefore, I'm preventing it from falling into our vehicle or ourselves. And just my offhand here, guys, can go ahead, start activating that lever, as you guys can see. And then I can simply push that strip out all the way. And therefore, I am completely released. So, go ahead and get that strip set out of the way. Then I can take our bike, lift it, and start getting ourselves riding. So it doesn't take any time at all, as you guys saw, to get that off. And mounting it is actually even easier, especially with those strips getting out of the way. A lot of times you run into trouble with those just kind of hanging in the way, but nice that we can go ahead, stick them underneath our cradle, and we don't have to worry about them. So we're going to go ahead, just make it look pretty real quick here, guys. Now, a couple dimensions to keep in mind on here, though, is definitely going to be our hatch access. So as you guys can see, this is definitely going to be walking right into our center mass, not actually going to be able to get that hatch open. However, we actually can go ahead and drop down this center mass. So right here on the side, we just have a little knob. I'm just going to go ahead and loosen that guy up, get our lever set out of the way, and then we can actually bring this entire system down into the side here. And as you guys can see, that's going to go ahead and allow us to clear out. Now, one little trick I will say with that too, I love to take this little cradle here, this little strip, and just cinch it through the arms here as well. Then go ahead and pull that nice and tight for ourselves. That's going to keep our mass there, especially when we go ahead to fold this up later. It's really going to help make sure we have no contact with our vehicle. But as you guys can see now, I can go ahead, open up that hatch, get full access there, get those bike helmets, coolers, anything I might need from the inside of here. You do have a little space here too for your legs to just kind of sit, which is nice. So when your bike is removed, we are still going to get full access to this hatch with no trouble at all. So keep in mind, it might be a little awkward trying to get really, really heavy stuffs out of there, but as long as we are watching our footing, I don't think we're going to have any issue. Now, one important dimension to keep in mind here too is going to be our clearance. Give me 1 second as I grab my tape measure, guys. Now, of course, the CX-9 not going to be the longest vehicle out there. However, always important to watch your length. So let's see, from the rear of our bumper here to the very end of our carrier is going to be putting us right at 39.5 inches there, right to the very end of those reflector units. So definitely a little length to consider. However, we can quickly shorten that down in no time at all. Before we do so, though, another very important dimension to keep in mind is going to be our clearance. So looks like our wings dip down just a little bit here. And since we are at the furthest point of our carrier, we're going to measure right here from the ground. Now, while we're doing that, as those front wheels go up, the back will go down, and so will your hitch-mounted accessory. So if you have any very steep inclines you're approaching, this can be something just to keep in mind as we go up. Taking a look here, we can see from the ground to the very end of our carrier is putting us at 18.5 inches there. So plenty of clearance in my opinion. You are getting a nice rise in the carrier as well, and we aren't really that far from our rear axle, so it's not going to be something I'm very worried about. Let's just be conscious of any very steep inclines, or if you are taking a little off-roading there in the CX-9, just something to be conscious of. But bringing ourselves back to that length, we are working with nothing too crazy there, about 34 inches or so. So we can go ahead and quickly shorten that down. Right here in the middle, we're going to have a retaining clip and knob system. So we can go ahead and take that clip out and just start working this guy lefty-loosey, of course. Once it gets to a certain point, that thread is going to allow ourselves to take it off. And we can bring this right up into position here on our CX-9. Now you guys are going to see it is getting a little close. We're not going to go all the way to the ground. We're going to go ahead and line this up right into position there and go ahead and rethread that guy in. So very easy to do that solution for ourselves. This is going to help shave down a lot of that length. Let me go ahead and run this tight, guys. Therefore, we can go ahead and see how much play we would have in this position. So yes, we're cutting down a lot of that length. Let's make sure we're not having any contact. As you guys can see, very little to no play here. I don't think we'd be feeling this at all, let alone hearing it on the back of our car. And I'm liking that we're not too close to the back of our vehicle. In fact, looks like we're sitting near about 4 inches or so, 4 1/4 there from the inside to the closest part of our carrier. But let's go ahead and see how much space we actually shaved down from our length from the rear of our bumper here to the very end of our carrier. And actually our wings are our furthest point here, guys. So that's going to put us at 13 1/4 inches there. So almost 20 inches being shaved down. That's really going to help us get this in the garage, or at least a lot more maneuverability when we want to park it. Moving our way down to the bottom here, though, you guys can see we do have our 2-inch shank here today. And that is allowing us to use our 2-inch hitch receiver. And on the inside of that, you are seeing a threaded anti-rattle hitch bolt. Now, those guys are awesome. They're going to do a great job, of course, of making sure that our carrier stays attached to our vehicle when we leave it unattended. You also are seeing that locking core there to make sure that we can go ahead and keep our carrier attached to our vehicle when we leave it unattended, which is always great for ourselves. Well, the destination is going to be a great little way, guys, of getting a lot of bikes to wherever we're going to go, especially being in the CX-9, going to have room to bring the whole friends or at least the whole family with us. So it can behoove us to go ahead and grab a couple extra bikes here on the back of our CX-9. Again, I like the destination. I think it holds up well, and I really, really like those reflectors right on the end. Just make sure everybody's safe on those long drives. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for our look at the Hot Racks Destination 4 Bike Rack Carrier here on our 2016 Mazda CX-9. I'm Bobby. Thank you for watching.
Now we're going to go ahead and take it on our test course. First, we'll start with the slaloms. This is going to show the side-to-side action. It's kind of going to mimic the movements that you'll see whenever you're driving down the road normally. Now we'll have the alternating speed bumps. This is going to be more so like the uneven roads and some of that uneven terrain you might be traveling on, and see how it holds up.